The grand chamber of Concordia Prime Station gleamed under artificial lights that mimicked a dozen different home suns. Ambassador Jake Morrison stood at the human podium, his dark suit simple compared to the elaborate robes and armor worn by other delegates. Beside him, Commander Lisa Hayes watched the crowd with careful eyes. She wore her military uniform, medals earned in border conflicts that most of these aliens had never heard about. Jake cleared his throat and began his presentation. Earth wanted permission to expand patrol routes in the Outer Rim territories. It was a reasonable request. Human ships already operated in those dangerous sectors, protecting trade routes that other species found too risky. All they asked was official recognition of what they already did. The laughter started before he finished speaking. It began with the Vraxian delegate, a serpent-like creature whose scales shifted colors with emotion. The creature's hiss echoed through the translation devices, coming out as mocking chuckles in 100 languages. Soon, other delegates joined in. The massive Krolathi representative, built like a walking mountain, slapped his armored leg with a sound like thunder. 200 years, the Krolathi boomed, his voice shaking the floor. Your species has been in space for only 2 centuries, and you think you can patrol the Outer Rim? We have been spacefaring for 10,000 years. You are children playing with fusion drives. The ancient Safari envoy, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline form, spoke with a voice that sounded like wind chimes. Humanity should learn to walk before trying to run. Perhaps focus on your own small corner of space. Leave the greater galaxy to those who understand it. Jake's jaw tightened, but his expression remained neutral. Lisa noticed his hands grip the podium edge just a bit harder. She had served with Jake for 15 years. She knew what that small gesture meant. He was angry, but he would not show it. Not here. Not to them. The vote came quickly. The council had 203 member species. Earth's proposal needed a simple majority. When the count finished, only 4 species voted in favor. 4 out of 203. Even the species that traded regularly with Earth had voted against them. The Vraxian ambassador rose one more time, his scales now bright orange with amusement. Perhaps in another 1,000 years, humanity will be ready to sit at the adults' table. Until then, stay in your sandbox and let the real powers handle galactic affairs. More laughter filled the chamber. Jake nodded slowly, as if accepting the judgment. He gathered his papers with deliberate care. Lisa followed him out of the chamber, her face carved from stone. Behind them, the council moved on to other business, already forgetting about Earth's failed proposal. That evening, Jake sat alone in his quarters on the diplomatic ring of Concordia Prime. The window showed the vast darkness of space, dotted with distant stars. He opened a secure channel, one that used quantum encryption Earth had developed but never shared with the Council. The technology was 50 years ahead of what other species used, but the Council believed humans were primitives. Let them keep believing it. The face that appeared on his screen belonged to Admiral Ryan Scott, commander of Earth's Defense Forces. At least, that was his public title. His real job was something else entirely. "How did it go?" Ryan asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. "Exactly as we predicted," Jake said. "They laughed. They voted no. The Vraxians were particularly insulting. And," Jake allowed himself a small smile, "Protocol Exodus is confirmed. Begin immediately." Ryan nodded. "We've been ready for 3 months. Every ship captain has their orders. Every colony administrator knows the plan. We can start tonight." "Make it happen," Jake said. "And Ryan, make sure everyone understands. This is not an attack. This is not revenge. This is simply us choosing a different path." "Understood. What about you and the others there?" "We'll stay for now. Someone needs to watch their reaction. Ben will remain as liaison. Everyone else will cycle home over the next month quietly. By the time they notice, it will be too late." The channel closed. Jake stood and looked out at the stars again. Earth had joined the Galactic Council 40 years ago, full of hope and excitement. They had believed in cooperation, in learning from older, wiser species. Instead, they found arrogance and dismissal at every turn. Every proposal rejected, every innovation questioned, every achievement diminished. But humanity had learned patience from 1,000 years of their own internal conflicts. They smiled and nodded while the Council mocked them. They operated old, outdated ships in Council space while building something else in the darkness beyond explored territory. They played the role of eager students while quietly becoming something the Council would never expect. Tomorrow morning, the galaxy would wake up to a mystery. The morning after that, they would begin to understand, and in the weeks to come, they would realize their mistake. Not because Earth would threaten them or attack them, but because humanity would simply no longer be there to fill all the gaps they had quietly occupied. Jake finished his evening report and sent it through official channels. Everything normal, everything routine. He even included a footnote thanking the Council for their time and consideration, professional to the last moment. In his quarters, he packed a small bag with personal items, not enough to be obvious, but enough to be ready. Lisa had done the same. So had every human on Concordia Prime except Ben Carter. The liaison officer who had volunteered to stay behind and face the questions that would come. The station lights dimmed for the night cycle. Across the galaxy, human ships received their orders. Captains opened sealed packages they had carried for months. Colony governors activated emergency protocols they had rehearsed in secret. And in hidden shipyards beyond the edges of mapped space, the real human fleet prepared to reveal itself. The Council had ridiculed Earth. They had called humanity children. They had laughed at human ambitions. Tomorrow, they would learn what humans did when they stopped asking for permission. Tomorrow, they would wake up to an empty galaxy, wondering where all the humans went, and they would never see them coming. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened at dawn station time. Delegates arrived in various states of confusion and concern. Some appeared in holographic form, unable to travel quickly enough to attend in person. The chamber buzzed with 100 different languages, all asking the same question in different words. Where did the humans go? The Krolathi military commander, who served as Council security chief, stood at the central podium. His name was Thorak, and he had spent 30 years protecting Council space. In all that time, he had never seen anything like this. His report was simple and terrifying. Between 3 and 4 in the morning by Galactic Standard Time, every human military vessel had vanished from tracked space. Not just a few ships, not just one fleet. Every single human warship, from massive carriers to small patrol boats, had disappeared within the same hour. Over 400 vessels, gone without a trace. Long-range sensors showed no debris, no signs of battle, no distress signals. The ships had simply stopped existing on every scanner, every tracking system, every monitoring station across the galaxy, as if someone had reached out and erased them from reality. A Vraxian military officer stood up, his scales flickering between purple and red with anxiety. Could this be an attack? Some unknown enemy with advanced weapons? Thorak shook his massive head. We considered that possibility. But it is not just military ships. Human cargo vessels are gone too. Research stations in deep space, empty. Colony supply runs, vanished. Even the small shuttle that runs mail between Earth's embassy stations has disappeared. The Sephiri envoy's crystalline form pulsed with concern. What about their colonies? Their installations? That is the truly strange part, Thorak continued. Human colonies still exist. Earth itself is still there, but every ship, every station not on a planetary surface, gone. We have tried contacting Earth Command for 12 hours. They do not respond. They are not hostile. They simply do not answer our calls. Panic rippled through the chamber. The council had fought wars, faced disasters, negotiated with hostile species. But this was something new. An entire species had just withdrawn from galactic civilization overnight, with no warning and no explanation. The council chairman called for order. "Where is the human delegation? Surely Ambassador Morrison can explain this." Thorak gestured to a side door. Ambassador Morrison departed on a scheduled transport to Earth last night. Before this began. However, Security Liaison Ben Carter remained on station. He is waiting outside. Ben walked in moments later. He was young for a human, maybe 35 years old by their counting. He wore a simple uniform and carried no weapons. His face showed no concern, no fear, no anxiety. If anything, he looked calm. Too calm. "Liaison Carter," the chairman said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Can you explain what has happened to your people's ships?" Ben stood at the human podium, where Jake had stood just yesterday. "I cannot explain, because I do not have information to share. Earth Command has not contacted me with any details." "Your entire fleet has vanished," the Krolathi commander roared. "Surely you must know something." "I know that our ships are no longer where they were," Ben said simply. "Beyond that, I have no official information." The Vraxian delegate who had mocked Jake yesterday now spoke with urgency. "Is this some kind of threat? A demonstration of power? What does Earth want?" Ben's expression did not change. "Humanity does not make threats. We make decisions. If Earth Command wishes to communicate with the Council, they will do so through proper channels." For 3 hours, they questioned him. They demanded answers. They suggested possible explanations. Through it all, Ben remained polite but unhelpful. He answered every question with variations of the same response. He did not know. He had no information. Earth would communicate when ready. Finally, the Safari envoy asked the question that everyone was thinking. "Are we at war with humanity?" Ben was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke carefully, choosing each word with precision. "The Galactic Council is not at war with humanity. Earth has not declared war on anyone. What you are experiencing is simply the absence of human presence. Make of that what you will." The session ended without answers. Delegates returned to their quarters and their ships, more confused than when they started. Throughout the day, more reports came in. Human trading posts in neutral zones closed. Human medical staff at mixed species stations departed on the last transport out. Human diplomats at embassy stations gone except for small skeleton crews. It was as if humanity had looked at the galaxy and decided they were done. No dramatic exit, no angry speeches, no threats or ultimatums. They just quietly packed up and left, taking their ships and their people with them. The only trace they left was emptiness and questions. On the third day, a junior analyst working for the Galactic Trade Commission made a discovery that sent her running to her supervisor. Emma Phillips was human, one of the few civilian staff members who had remained at her post. She worked in resource logistics, tracking supply chains across council space. It was boring work most days, but today she had found something that made her hands shake. Her supervisor, a methodical insect-like being named Chiktal, examined her data. His compound eyes widened as he processed what he was seeing. Within an hour, they were presenting to the full council. Emma stood nervously at the podium. She was not used to speaking to such important people, but her data spoke for itself. She brought up charts and graphs, showing trade routes and supply chains spanning 50 years. "Over the past 5 decades," she began, her voice gaining strength, "humanity has quietly integrated into 17 major supply chains across council space. They did not do this through official trade agreements or high-level negotiations. They did it by taking jobs nobody else wanted." She showed the council a map of the galaxy. Red lines indicated routes where human cargo haulers operated. There were hundreds of them, connecting distant systems, passing through dangerous zones, carrying goods that other species found too risky or not profitable enough to transport. Humans hauled mining equipment to radiation zones near unstable stars. They ran medical supplies to plague worlds other species quarantined. They transported waste materials through pirate territories because the pay was good enough and they were willing to fight if necessary. Chictal added his own analysis. We always assumed these were minor operations, side jobs that humans took because they were new to galactic trade. We were wrong. These routes carry critical supplies, medical isotopes that save lives, rare minerals used in jump drive construction, agricultural supplies for colony worlds that cannot produce their own food. The council chamber grew very quiet. Emma continued. Without human haulers, these supply chains do not function. There are no replacement contractors available. Most species refused these routes decades ago as too expensive or dangerous. Humans took them because they needed to prove themselves. Now they are gone, and there is nobody to replace them. The Krolathi commander spoke up. This is a trade disruption. It is serious, but we can adapt, offer higher pay to other contractors, reroute supplies through safer paths. Emma shook her head. That will take months to organize. Some colonies will run out of critical medicines in weeks. Mining operations in hazardous zones have already shut down because humans ran the equipment and provided security. 17 major supply chains, hundreds of secondary routes, all dependent on humans doing the work everyone else refused. The chairman looked at the data with growing horror. How did we not know this? Because nobody was paying attention, Emma said quietly. Humans were the junior species, the ones everyone laughed at. Who tracks the logistics of garbage haulers and risk-taker contractors? Humans were doing the dirty work while everyone else focused on important matters. Chictal brought up another chart. There is more. Human patrol ships in the Outer Rim. The Council voted yesterday to deny them official patrol status, but they were already patrolling those zones. They have been for 20 years, providing security for trade routes through lawless space. The Vraxian military officer stood suddenly. Our colonies on the Rim. They border those zones. Human patrols were between us and pirate territory. Not anymore, Chictal said. As of this morning, sensors show increased pirate activity in formerly human-patrolled space. They are testing the waters. Without human ships to push them back, they are growing bold. Reports began flooding in throughout the day. A Vraxian mining colony reported pirates had raided their supply depot. A trade convoy near the Rim sent distress signals before going silent. Medical supplies scheduled to arrive at a plague world were 3 weeks overdue because the human hauler had vanished. The Council had thought humans were weak. They had laughed at human ships and human ambitions. Now those same humans were gone, and the galaxy was discovering just how much it had depended on the species they mocked. Not because humans controlled anything important, but because they had quietly made themselves essential by doing every job everyone else refused. 23 days after the disappearance, every communications array in Council space received the same transmission simultaneously. It did not come through official diplomatic channels. It did not request permission to broadcast. It simply appeared on every screen, every holographic display, every communications device capable of receiving a signal. Jake Morrison appeared on screens across the galaxy. He looked exactly as he had at the Council session 3 weeks ago. Same suit, same calm expression. But the background behind him made military analysts freeze in their tracks. He stood in what looked like a command center, and through the windows behind him, they could see ships, thousands of ships, and they did not look like anything in Council records. "Greetings to the Galactic Council," Jake began, his voice professional and neutral. "This message is being broadcast to all member species to explain recent events and clarify humanity's position going forward. He paused, as if organizing his thoughts. 3 weeks ago, the Council voted on Earth's proposal to expand patrol operations in the Outer Rim. The proposal was rejected by an overwhelming majority. More significantly, it was met with mockery and dismissal. We were told we are children. We were told to stay in our sandbox. We were told we are not ready to sit at the adults' table. Jake's expression did not change, but something in his eyes grew harder. The Council was correct. We are not ready to sit at the adults' table, so we have decided to build our own table instead. Commander Lisa Hayes appeared beside him. She touched a control panel, and technical data filled part of the screen. Ship designs, performance specifications, weapons systems. The numbers made no sense. They were too advanced, too powerful, decades beyond Council technology. What you have been watching for the past 40 years, Lisa said, was Earth's public fleet. Ships we used in Council space operating under Council regulations, using technology appropriate for our status as a junior member species. These vessels were effective for their purpose. They were also 70 years old by human development standards. She brought up an image of a massive shipyard floating in deep space. Construction facilities stretched for kilometers, building vessels of elegant and deadly design. This is Sanctuary Yards, located in a region of space the Council classified as unexplorable due to dangerous spatial anomalies. Humans learned to navigate those anomalies 30 years ago. We have been building our actual fleet here ever since. The technical specifications continued to scroll. Quantum tunneling drives that could cross the galaxy in days instead of months. Adaptive shielding that reconfigured in nanoseconds. Weapons systems that made Council military technology look primitive. Ship designs that incorporated lessons from every conflict humanity had ever fought. Jake took over again. While the Council watched our old cargo haulers and outdated patrol ships, we were expanding into uncharted space. We established colonies and systems the Council never explored. We built infrastructure in regions considered too dangerous. We developed technology without seeking Council approval or sharing our innovations. He brought up a star map. A vast section of space lit up in blue, marking human-controlled territory. It was enormous, far larger than anyone had imagined. The region the Council called unexplorable was not empty. It was full of human settlements, mining operations, research facilities, and military installations. We call this region the Human Expanse, Jake continued. It contains 247 colony worlds, 16 major shipyard facilities, and countless research stations. The population of the Expanse is larger than the population of Earth itself. We have been building this civilization for 5 decades, while the Council assumed we were confined to our home system and a few border colonies. The Council delegates watching the broadcast sat in stunned silence. Some of them were running calculations, trying to understand how humanity had hidden such massive expansion. Others were studying the ship designs, realizing with growing horror that Earth had not just achieved parity with Council technology. They had surpassed it. Lisa brought up tactical assessments. Our withdrawal from Council space was not an attack or a threat. It was a simple repositioning of assets. Every human military vessel has returned to the Expanse. Every colonist in Council territory has been offered the choice to return home or remain. Most chose to return. The human presence you grew accustomed to no longer exists in your space. But why? Jake asked, as if reading the question on every delegate's mind. Why did we do this? Why the secrecy? Why the withdrawal? He leaned forward slightly. Because we learned a crucial lesson from our own history. Never let others define your limitations. Never trust your survival to those who do not respect you. Never wait for permission to become what you need to be. The broadcast showed images of human ships operating in dangerous zones. Crews working in radiation storms, patrol vessels fighting off pirates, cargo haulers pushing through hostile territory, all the jobs the council had dismissed as insignificant. "We did the work nobody else wanted," Jake said. "We took the dangerous routes. We operated in hostile territory. We made ourselves useful while you made us feel worthless. And in doing so, we learned the truth. The council did not need us, but you had grown comfortable with us handling the jobs you refused. That is not need, that is convenience." Lisa pulled up economic data. Supply chains failing, colonies running short on critical materials, security incidents in formerly human-patrolled space. The council's problems were mounting daily. "We are not doing this to punish you," Jake continued. "We are doing this because we finally understand our place in the galaxy. Not as junior members begging for approval, not as students seeking wisdom from elders, but as an independent civilization choosing our own path." He stood straighter, and behind him, through those windows, the human fleet continued its maneuvers. Thousands of advanced warships moving with precision and purpose. "Earth is formally withdrawing from the Galactic Council effective immediately. We will maintain diplomatic relations with individual species who wish it, but we will no longer participate in Council governance. We will no longer seek Council approval for our actions. We will no longer operate in Council space unless invited by specific treaty." The coordinates of the human expanse appeared on screen. "This is our territory. It is not subject to Council jurisdiction. We welcome peaceful contact and fair trade, but we will defend our borders with the full strength of our capabilities. Make no mistake about what you are seeing. This is not a bluff. This is not a demonstration. This is simply the truth that we have kept hidden while you mocked us." Lisa added one final technical detail. "The ships you saw operating in Council space represented less than 5% of human naval capability. Those vessels were designated for external operations using approved technology. What you are seeing now is our actual military strength. We have kept this hidden not from fear, but from patience. We waited until we were truly ready before revealing what we had become." Jake's expression softened slightly. "Some of you will see this as betrayal. Others will see it as deception. We see it as survival. We came to the Council with hope and left with understanding. You taught us that respect is not given. It is earned. You taught us that weakness invites exploitation. You taught us that nice words mean nothing without the power to back them." He gestured to the fleet behind him. "So we built power, not to conquer, not to threaten, but to ensure that no one ever again tells us where we can go or what we can do. The Council wanted humanity to stay in its sandbox. Very well. We built our own sandbox. It is bigger than you imagined, and it is not available for your convenience anymore." The transmission showed one final image, a plaque mounted in the command center. It bore a quote from an ancient human philosopher. "It is better to be respected than loved, if you cannot be both." "Humanity chooses respect," Jake said. "We offer fair dealing to those who treat us fairly. We offer defense pacts to those who respect our sovereignty. We offer trade agreements to those who see us as equals. What we no longer offer is our service without respect, our resources without recognition, our strength without acknowledgement." He paused, letting the words sink in. "The Council will have questions. They will want negotiations. They will want to understand what this means for galactic stability." Security Liaison. Ben Carter remains on Concordia Prime to handle initial communications. But understand this clearly. We are not negotiating our independence. We are announcing it. Whether you accept it or not is your choice. Whether you respect it or not will determine our future relationship. Good luck navigating the galaxy without us, Lisa added with the barest hint of a smile. You will find it more difficult than you expected. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, council delegates stared at blank screens, trying to process what they had just witnessed. Humanity had not fled. They had not been defeated. They had simply stopped playing a game they were tired of losing. And in doing so, they had revealed themselves as something the Council never suspected. Not primitive children, not junior partners, but a fully realized civilization that had been hiding its true strength all along. 3 months passed. The galaxy adjusted to its new reality slowly and painfully. Some species adapted quickly, opening direct negotiations with Earth for defense pacts and trade agreements. Others struggled with pride, unwilling to admit they needed humanity more than humanity needed them. The Vraxian Empire suffered the worst. Without human patrols creating a buffer zone, pirate raids intensified along their border colonies. They lost 2 mining stations and a small colony world before their military could reorganize. Their economy strained under the effort of defending territories they had taken for granted. The Krolathi tried to fill the void left by human cargo haulers. They offered higher pay and better contracts to lure other species into the dangerous routes. Few took the offer. The routes were dangerous for good reason. Without humans willing to fight through the risks, supplies dwindled and prices soared. Medical shipments to plague worlds stopped entirely. The Safari, who had lived for thousands of years and seen countless crises, watched as preventable deaths mounted. Their own ships refused to enter quarantine zones. The insurance costs were too high, the risk too great. Only humans had been willing, and now they were gone. The Galactic Trade Commission estimated economic losses in the hundreds of billions. Emma Phillips, the analyst who first identified the problem, was promoted 3 times in 2 months. Her reports became mandatory reading for Council leadership. She documented each failure, each gap, each consequence of humanity's absence. But she also documented something else. Human civilization in the expanse was thriving. Trade between their colonies flourished. Their economy grew at rates the Council had not seen in centuries. They were not suffering from isolation. They were prospering from independence. On the 92nd day after the withdrawal, the Vraxian Empire broke. Their new ambassador, a practical military officer named Orcs, requested a formal audience with Earth's diplomatic corps. The meeting was scheduled for neutral space, a small station at the edge of human territory. Jake Morrison arrived with a small delegation. Lisa Hayes, Ben Carter, who had finally left Concordia Prime after 3 months of answering the same questions, and Admiral Ryan Scott, making his first public appearance as commander of the Human Expanse Defense Fleet. Krolix came with military advisors and economic specialists. His scales were dark green, a color that signaled humility in Vraxian culture. It was a deliberate choice. A signal that this was not a negotiation between enemies, but between potential partners. The meeting room was simple. A table, chairs designed for various body types, windows showing the stars, no flags, no symbols of authority, just beings sitting down to talk. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," Krolix began. His translator rendered his hisses into smooth, diplomatic language. "My government has sent me to discuss the possibility of mutual defense arrangements." Jake nodded. "We are willing to listen. What does the Vraxian Empire propose?" For the next 6 hours they negotiated, not as superior and inferior, not as council member and applicant, but as equals with mutual interests. The Vraxians needed security on their borders. Humanity could provide it, but the price was recognition, formal treaties acknowledging human sovereignty. Trade agreements on equal terms, technology sharing based on mutual benefit, not charity. Krolix accepted every condition. His empire was desperate. More importantly, he was smart enough to see the bigger picture. Humanity was not going to rejoin the Council. They were not going to return to their old position. The only choice was to deal with them as they were now, or continue suffering the consequences of their absence. "One question," Krolix said as they finalized the preliminary agreements. "Why did you hide your true capabilities for so long? You could have revealed your strength decades ago. You could have demanded respect instead of earning mockery. Jake was quiet for a moment. Because revealing strength too early invites challenge. Building in secret gave us time to become truly ready. When you show a knife, people prepare defenses. When you show nothing, they forget to watch. And when you finally reveal what you have built, it is too late for them to catch up. Lisa added, also, we needed to learn. Operating our old ships in council space taught us how your militaries think. Taking the jobs you refused taught us your weaknesses. Being dismissed as primitives gave us freedom to develop without scrutiny. Every insult was an opportunity. Every rejection was a lesson. Ryan spoke for the first time. The council thought they were teaching us our place. They were actually teaching us how to survive without them. For that education, we are grateful. Krolix's scales flickered with what might have been respect or might have been resignation. My people have a saying. The student who endures insults becomes the master who needs no teacher. We have a similar saying, Ben said. What does not kill us makes us stronger. The council did not kill us. They made us stronger by forcing us to become self-reliant. The negotiations concluded with preliminary agreements. The Vraxian Empire would formally recognize human sovereignty over the expanse. They would establish embassies in human territory. They would negotiate fair trade terms and mutual defense pacts. In return, human patrol ships would return to the border zones, but under human command, following human rules. Krolix departed with his delegation. Within a week, other species began requesting similar meetings. The Krolathi sent trade negotiators. The Safari requested technology-sharing agreements for medical transport. Even smaller species who had never directly insulted Earth now approached with diplomatic overtures. Each negotiation followed the same pattern. Mutual respect, equal terms. No appeals to council authority, no references to humanity's junior status. Because that status no longer existed, Earth had left the table and built their own. Now others were asking permission to sit at the human table instead. Back on Concordia Prime, the Galactic Council convened its quarterly session. The chamber looked the same. The delegates spoke the same languages. But something fundamental had changed. Where humans had once stood at a junior podium, there was now empty space. A reminder of absence. A symbol of consequence. The chairman opened the session with an acknowledgement that no one wanted to make, but everyone knew was necessary. The council must recognize that our galactic order has changed. Humanity's departure has created both challenges and opportunities. We must adapt to this new reality. Some delegates argued for reconciliation. Send ambassadors to the expanse. Offer humanity a seat as a senior member species. Acknowledge past mistakes and build new relationships. Others argued for isolation. Let humans have their territory. Focus on council species. Rebuild without them. But everyone knew the truth. The choice was not the council's to make. Humanity had already made their choice. The only question was whether the council would adapt to the new reality or continue pretending they controlled a galaxy that had moved beyond their authority. On Earth, in the council chambers where human government met, there was discussion of a different kind. Should they accept individual treaties with council species? Should they maintain complete isolation? Should they offer technology and aid to those who had mocked them? Jake Morrison, now holding the title of Secretary for External Relations, stood before Earth's leadership. We are not doing this for revenge. We are doing this for survival and prosperity. Any species willing to treat us with respect deserves the same in return. Any species that refuses can learn to manage without us. Admiral Ryan Scott added his perspective. Our strength is not just our ships. It is our independence. As long as we remain self-sufficient, we cannot be controlled or coerced. We can be generous from a position of strength, but we must never again become dependent on those who do not value us. The decision was made. Earth would engage with the galaxy on human terms, fair dealing with those who dealt fairly, defense pacts with those who respected sovereignty, trade agreements that benefited all parties equally, but no return to the old system, no begging for approval, no accepting insults for the sake of peace. Months turned to years. The human presence in the galaxy stabilized in its new form. Some species maintained close relationships with Earth. Others kept their distance. A few harbored resentment, but none could deny the fundamental shift that had occurred. The species that had been mocked at the Council had become a major power in their own right. The ships that had been dismissed as primitive were revealed as deliberate misdirection. The civilization that had been told to stay in its sandbox had built an empire in the darkness and emerged stronger than anyone imagined. And every time a council delegate looked at the empty space where the human podium used to stand, they were reminded of a lesson they had learned too late. Underestimating others is dangerous. Mocking the weak is foolish, because sometimes the weak are not weak at all. Sometimes they are simply patient. And when patience ends, the galaxy changes in ways no one expected. Jake Morrison stood in his office on Earth looking at a photograph from his last day at Concordia Prime. Ben Carter had taken the picture. It showed the human delegation walking out of the council chamber for the last time, their backs straight, their heads high. No anger, no bitterness, just quiet dignity. Below the photo was the quote that had ended the broadcast. The quote that summed up everything humanity had learned from their time in the Galactic Council. It is better to be respected than loved if you cannot be both. Humanity had chosen respect, and in making that choice, they had earned something the Council could never give them: the right to determine their own destiny, the freedom to build their own future, the strength to stand alone in a galaxy that had taught them never to depend on anyone else. The Council had ridiculed Earth. The next morning, humanity's fleets were gone, and the galaxy would never be the same again.